Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Come on in. Great to see everybody today. Hope you're doing well. And I just got a nice email. I staff a booth at the farmers market over the summers to pass out literature, conservative literature, pro-life literature. And I just got an email. Angela, one of our volunteers, is going to bring some tomato plants so we can plant some tomato plants, which is fantastic. I like hearing that news. All right. Well, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we always do. We got a lot to cover. You'll see the title of this is Lawfare. Lawfare. I will define lawfare for you. We will understand it. It's been going on for a few years now, but it's accelerating, and it's something we have to understand and be willing to articulate and point to, and we'll get to that. But let's go first and make sure we do say the Pledge of Allegiance. And here is our great flag, and here is our pledge in case you forget. Join me in standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me for that. I'll get rid of that. So you see that title, Lawfare. Lawfare, let me get the title back on here. You'll see that title, Waging Lawfare on We the People. What do I mean by that? Well, the term lawfare is pretty new. It's the last, I don't know, a few years. I became aware of it probably 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't know it before. You can hear the echo of warfare, obviously, lawfare. And it's the idea, I'm summarizing my sense of it, of using the law as part of warfare or political battle. And, you know, the emblem, the sort of a perfect example of this in this recent years is General Mike Flynn, where clearly, Susan Rice in the White House and Joe Biden in the White House and others in the White House were looking for a law to use against their political opponent, Donald Trump's administration and Mike Flynn. And once they got the law, they pulled the string on it for as long as they could, and they milked it and they damaged people. And as someone said, describing lawfare, the process is the punishment. Sometimes they get a conviction or they get a plea deal because people can't stand to fight, or it's just so corrupt. But most times it's the process, years and years and millions of dollars. And contrast that, by the way, with what you don't see on the other side. You never saw Hillary Clinton have to answer to a grand jury, for example, for her email problems, or Hunter Biden is supposedly under investigation. We'll see. But this idea of lawfare, we can maybe go back a little further and point our finger to the sort of earliest that's a funny phrase to say, the earliest recent example was Lois Lerner, who was running the IRS and was targeting Tea Party groups. Remember that? Targeting some of our friends, Catherine Engelbrecht of True the Vote. She had to fight hard to get approved. That's the use of the law and regulations and the power of government against people, and churn them through it and make them suffer through the process, whether they're guilty or not. And as government has grown, we have seen the ability of government to utilize its power against we the people more and more. It's just the definition. If the swamp and the swamp monsters are more plentiful and more powerful, they have more opportunity to impact us. And so whether it's regulatory stuff or tax implications and tax rulings and changes in the administrative state, which is, kind of making the decisions about what the law meant that was passed, the administrative state's allowed to apply it and make up the rules, rulemaking authority, all these different ways that people can be targeted. You may not even know it. It could just be that you're on the other side of an ideological issue. You think of like the EPA and targeting people and all. So we have this problem, and it's a problem of big government. And there's nobody there's a lot of people that have written on that. Nobody's surprised about that. But what we're seeing now is a transformation of sort of what I think was somewhat stealth lawfare, somewhat, certainly corrupt, and now it's just blatant. And here's the example for you right now. In the last 24 hours, the news has leaked that there is a grand jury in New York State that is looking into Donald Trump's business activities or something. And by definition, it's a criminal inquiry. That's what that would be. But here's a couple of details you need to know about grand juries. Grand juries have been around for about 900 years. They go back to England. And the idea of grand juries was that they were a check on the power of the government to indict citizens without any check on their power. And so the prosecutor says, I'm going to charge you with this, and you have to go to trial. And the grand jury makes it so if someone's going to be charged with something, they have to bring in a grand jury. So different than a trial jury. A trial jury is the 12 men and women who are finders of your guilt or innocence in a courtroom with a trial and all the rest. A grand jury is still citizens, our peers, who are brought into a setting and they're presented evidence by the prosecutors in order to make sure that the prosecutors aren't rushing to judgment. That's the tradition. The tradition is that. Over time, what has happened is because a grand jury includes the prosecutor and the jury members and nobody else, there's no judge there, there's no opposition, you don't get to have a defense argument, there's no obligation for the prosecutor to say, well, we think he or she did this, but we have a long list here's some things that mitigate. You don't have any obligation to do any mitigation or exculpatory evidence. So you have this situation where the grand juries have become more and more like a rubber stamp. The joke is a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich because the prosecutor says, this is what we have, this is what the law says, you should indict. And most grand juries take a look and they say, okay. So that check and balance on the power of the crown back in the early part of this in England, maybe it's changed, but it still exists. It's still there. Well, one of the aspects of our system and the grand jury was secrecy, precisely because the grand jury is a check on the power of the prosecutor. In other words, before you are publicly tried before a jury, there's a check on that because no matter whether you're convicted or not, you're going to be publicly ensnared in a trial, right? You're going to have facts come out, and you're going to have things, and usually, even if they're acquitted, or no matter whether they're acquitted or found guilty in a jury trial, a lot of things come out that aren't particularly, good for you, good for an individual defendant. So before you get to that point of the public sort of airing of the argument, the check on this is supposed to be the grand jury, which is secret. That's the key, secret. It's so important that it's secret. And so in the last 24 hours, the New York leaked that the Trump family or business or somebody is before a grand jury. And why? Well, because they're not engaging in the law. They're engaging in lawfare. And so you have the Washington Post had the story first last night, then the AP, then everybody else, and they're writing about the story. The secret nature of the grand jury is central to the system. And why is it broken? Because it's Donald Trump. Why is it broken? Because the media has to have that story, and because New York, and I think it's the Attorney General in New York, they don't want to play fair. They don't believe the rules apply to the people that they don't like. That's the real fact here is they do not believe, the people with power do not believe that the regular rules, the rules of law, the rules of America, our Judeo-Christian values, those should not apply to people that they don't like. And they don't like Trump. And the media likes to have the action of Trump and all the rest. And so we saw this with the impeachment. Nancy Pelosi's second impeachment was really such a joke. The first one was a joke. The second one was really insane. And she didn't care because she's just using the system against we the people. And this idea now that we have a grand jury in New York that has leaked that it's supposed to be secret, that they're going to consider some aspects of the Trump administration, Trump's businesses or himself or something. We don't know because it's secret. You can't go look at the pleadings. You can't ask the parties. You can't go say to the judge, unseal these documents. There's nothing you could do. So likely we're talking 3 to 5 to 6 months of speculation. And the media and big tech, I saw the message on the grand jury secrecy being violated. The headline should have been, in violation of all American norms, the grand jury has leaked. People should be arrested. Instead, it was Trump's in trouble. And then everybody's celebrating on social media on the left. So social media, big tech is happy to stoke violations of our norms, of the way we live, and the rule of law when it's convenient for them. And obviously, big media does the same thing. And of course, we have the government in on it. So I don't know how to tell you anything other than we are in a really, this is accelerating past anything that people could have expected. I mean, I've been complaining about the Attorney General of New York for a little while because she took the founding of the NRA, which was in New York, and the NRA has been based in Virginia for decades, and she decided she was going to investigate them, and she made it clear it's a political target, and she did a good job because she took a political player. The NRA has a political role, a free speech role, and that she took him off the playing field in 2020, which has an impact. And she said when she ran for office, she said, "I'm going to get Trump." So, but a lot of people say stuff, and we expect our candidates to run for office and say stuff and then get into office and actually live up to the duty and the job. Maybe we don't like it. Maybe we wouldn't like it. But think about what's happening in this country if the system is not only being used against we the people, but it's constantly being undermined. It's constantly being degraded. It's a major, major threat. And the idea that the media, instead of saying, why would that system, the secrecy, be violated, just happily reports it, is actually insane. It's not insane. It's predictable now, but it's terrible. Let's say that. It's terrible. And I can tell you this, when at the highest level of our systems, take it government, law, media, all these, at the highest level, when there is no friction, no pushback on the norms, they're just sliding away. It's pretty easy to see where this is headed, at least where it's headed. You know, the norms are breaking all the time. Joe Biden's laptop and the FBI investigation is silenced by the media and big tech. In fact, you're thrown off of Twitter if you're the New York Post. Because why? Because the powers that be don't want that message. If you're January 6th, what we see now with the facts that come out, if it's against what the narrative that we're told, you get silenced, thrown off of media. And now we have Lawfare, where they're going to go after individuals, and they're not even going to abide by the basic norms of what we do as a country. It's extraordinary to see. And it's accelerating so fast. And again, back to my point, when there is no penalty and no friction and no public objection of any size to the fact that they're breaking these norms, they just keep going. So, you know, one of the things we talked about yesterday on this is, you know, stop self-censoring. People should be screaming. I texted General Flynn last night, who has maybe the world's expert on lawfare in America, and he said this is terrible. And he said but the people are sick of it. I think he's right. The American people are sick of this, but we better let our voices be heard, because we're a long way from any election that will change who's in power. But we're not far away from what I think. You know, I did a radio interview this morning on a radio show in Illinois. I appear every Wednesday in the morning about 8:30 East Coast time, and we were talking about this. And the host said, sometime last week, the American people just said we've had enough. And by the time they said they had enough, the White House realized they were losing America, and they changed all the rules and said, stop the masks, stop all the requirements, and people got over it. And the host's point was the people can still be in charge. And here's what I'd say. We have to take back this country. At every level, we have to take back, and the first way to do it is have our voices heard. You have to object to this stuff. You have to believe it's wrong, and it needs to be called wrong. It's not just, oh, unfortunate, we don't like Trump. No, it's wrong. It's un-American to leak the grand jury and now to have the media frenzy. That's un-American. That's against the American values. That is seditious. That kind of conduct is endangering the republic. That's what we have to be willing to say. So I just wanted to keep in the loop. That's what lawfare is. That's where we are. Watch for other instances of this all around you. You know, one of the ones, lawfare is not just the government. The lawsuits against Sidney Powell and Mike Lindell and others, those are meant to be silencers, right? That was encouraged and managed by the way the media, big media and big tech and government handled the election cycle. So watch for other examples where lawfare, the punishment is the process that they take to get after we the people. So keep an eye on that. We got a lot more. Visit proamericareport.com. You can always go over there and sign up for the daily email. If you don't get that in the morning, you need to. So thanks for tuning in, and we will talk again soon.